What's up? I'm Ashley, and even though Bridgerton Season 3 Part 2 was a lot better and giving much more than Part 1, Part 2 still had its issues. Let's get into it. Season 3 was all about finding out the identity of Lady Whistledown. And by the end of the season, Colin finds out Penelope is Lady Whistledown and is hurt by the fact that she's been lying to him this whole time. But with Cressida finding out the identity of Lady Whistledown from someone who works at the printer shop, she starts blackmailing Penelope for what was at first £10,000, but then upped it to £20,000 when Colin went to speak to her about not revealing Penelope's identity. This was a breaking point for Penelope, and this is where she realized she could no longer live this lie. She knows Lady Whistledown is power, and the only reason why she created Whistledown in the first place is because she was always overlooked and no one ever listened to her. She never wanted to hurt people in the process. It seemed as though she was going to have to make a decision whether or not she wanted to give up Lady Whistledown or marry Colin. They made it seem like she could never have both. But in reality, it was all about Colin needing to embrace Penelope for who she is, and knowing and understanding why she would never give Lady Whistledown up. And even though Penelope was going back and forth on whether or not to give up Lady Whistledown, her knowing women are not allowed to have dreams and that everything revolves around their husbands, and just how women are not allowed to do whatever they want to do, unlike men, made her realize the importance of not giving up Lady Whistledown. And besides, it was her life's work, so why does she have to give it up for some man? And Colin is just going to have to realize that. And he wasn't at first. He thought he needed to save her once Cressida started blackmailing her, but she told him, no, don't save me. I don't want to be saved. Don't save me. I just need you to support me. And if he couldn't get with that, then she was prepared to be by herself. But eventually, he came around. Penelope wrote to the Queen, revealing herself as Lady Whistledown. She wanted the opportunity to apologize and was asking for forgiveness from the Queen and also from the people that she may have hurt. She hoped that they would all understand where she was coming from. She explains to them that she created Lady Whistledown because she knew there was a commonality between her and the readers. She says, everyone gossips, and gossip is information. But also, there was this common feeling that many people shared and had in common, which is feeling like no one is ever listening to you. So her creating Whistledown was her chance to get people to listen to her because she was never seen and always overlooked. Penelope promised everyone she would use Whistledown for good and not just for gossip, if they gave her permission to continue. So with her being honest with everyone and the Queen allowing her to continue, she realized she didn't have to hide who she really is anymore, and she didn't have to hide. And with that, Colin realizes how much he admires Penelope, and with him saying if his one duty in life was to love her, then he would be happy, shows just how much he's grown. And by the end of the season, Colin and Penelope have a baby boy who is now the heir. And Penelope will continue to write, just not as Lady Whistledown. She now signs her columns as Penelope Bridgerton. And Penelope finally has a better relationship with her sisters and her mother, who she has now saved from all of her fraudulent activities thanks to the money Penelope has gotten from Lady Whistledown. Moving on to Francesca and John, whose engagement was more so in the background, but left us with a bang. And a lot of y'all are mad. I understand being fans of the book and the show and all that, but y'all are going in. But let's see how it plays out first, because they have changed a lot of things from the book. Maybe John doesn't even die. How about that? With them both getting married in the finale, them moving to Scotland in John's family's estate where they can get some peace and be in the quiet because it's way too loud in the Bridgerton house. It's way too loud over there in England. And with them introducing Michaela, Season 4 may be all about Francesca. And this is the complete opposite from the books, because in the books, it's Michael, not Michaela. In the show, we get introduced to John's cousin, Michaela. And when John introduces Francesca to his cousin Michaela, Francesca is stumbling all over her words. She can't even get out a complete sentence. She was clearly taken back by her, kind of like love at first sight. During the wedding, there were a lot of emphasis on death and about how they're married until their dying breath, brings me to believe that maybe John will die, because we know from the books once they get to Scotland he dies soon after from a brain aneurysm, which could lead to Michaela and Francesca getting married. But how would that play out with the society they live in? Francesca and Michael have kids in the book. Could they switch it up and maybe Francesca has a kid with John before he dies, if he does die, and she doesn't lose it like in the book? Maybe they'll switch it up and John doesn't even die. Maybe she'll just end up staying with John forever. Who knows? They've been changing a lot of things, but the uproar is crazy, in my opinion. But share your opinion in the comments so we can talk about it. But Michaela, John, Francesca, and Eloise are off to Scotland. Eloise wants to go to Scotland with them because she wants to make an impact in the world. And she realizes that she can't do that by staying in England. She knows she needs to leave England in order to make a change. But thankfully, before she leaves, she's friends with Penelope again. As for Benedict, he was all over the place. He seemed to have no direction. He was in a relationship with Lady Tilly Arnold, but she wanted to bring Paul in to see if Benedict would like to be romantically involved with him. And this is something Benedict wasn't comfortable with at first, but then eventually came around to. This helped Benedict explore his sexuality more and realize what he really liked. And this is how he became more comfortable with himself and accepting his true self. When Tilly tells him that she just wants to be with him without Paul, he rejects it because he wants to continue finding out more about himself. Now, where does Sophie come in with all of this? Because we know from the books, Benedict ends up meeting Sophie at the masquerade ball, and the ball is mentioned during a conversation between Benedict and Eloise when Eloise tells him that she'll return home for the masquerade ball. Will he be done finding himself by then? And will season 4 be all about Benedict? Now let's get into my overall review. I enjoyed part 2 way more than part 1. I loved the tension between a lot of these characters and this whole thread about Lady Whistledown being revealed. And I also loved the message of accepting who you truly are. And even though there were a lot of couples happening at the same time, Francesca and John, Benedict and Tilly, as well as the Mondridges, Marcus and Violet, who I really enjoyed, I feel like it didn't take too much away from Colin and Penelope, unlike part 1. I also really liked the conversation between Lady Danbury and Violet and how they finally addressed Lady Danbury being involved with Violet's father. We saw this in the Queen Charlotte series and it was never mentioned after, so I'm glad they brought this up. And I also really liked that they showed us one of the hats Violet's father made in one of their last shots. I also thought the pacing was a lot better this half than with the first one, and I think the episodes being just a little bit longer helped out with that. Is this the best season of Bridgerton so far? And the answer is no. And I blame that heavily on the first part. And it has a lot to do with it being kind of slow and not focusing on Colin and Penelope more. Although I do wish we got just a few more sex scenes between Colin and Penelope in part 1 and part 2 because there were barely any. But that's just me. But y'all let me know your thoughts on Bridgerton Season 3 down in the comments so we can talk about it. And if you haven't already and want to see more videos like this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next one.